What are you doing here, on this path that seems to lead nowhere? Most of us spend our lives running. We're chasing goals, better versions of ourselves, a future that's always just out of reach. Even spirituality becomes a conquest. It's just one more book to read, one more lecture to attend, another state of mind. We're trying to check off a list. We collect concepts like trophies, hoping that the next insight will finally be the one to set us free. But eventually, the soul grows tired of hearing about the truth. It begins to crave the truth itself. It wants to stop looking at the map and finally step into the territory. Jean-Yves Leloup spent his life studying the Desert Fathers. He didn't just study them. He learned the profound difference between a lecture on prayer and the actual initiation into silence. He understood that you can't think your way into the absolute. You have to live it. I want to share something with you that has been a quiet anchor for me. The work of Jean-Yves Leloup. His book, Being Still, stripped away a lot of the noise in my own head. I'd like to explore its essence with you today. Forget about looking for a new dogma or some religious cage. That's not why we're here. We want to find what non-dual traditions call the great reality, the actual experience of it. Forget about reaching a destination. We're sitting on this rocky path for one reason only: to actually learn the art of meditation, to feel it. And meditation isn't something you do. It isn't a task to be checked off a list. It's what remains when you finally stop doing everything else. It is the natural state of the self when the ego stops its frantic interference. What does it mean to meditate? In our modern world, we've reduced it to a stress management tool, a way to lower our blood pressure so we can go back to the rat race. But for the contemplative, meditation is an ontological shift. It's the act of knowing the eternal within the fleeting nature of this very moment. It's about finding the now that doesn't pass away while everything else is in constant flux. In the non-dual perspective, there's no separation between the self and the moment. They are one and the same. To meditate is to flourish in the time we're given, to love in the time we're given, without asking why. It's a move from the reason for being to the joy of being. Leloup invites us to sit upright and remain perfectly still. Why the body? Because the stillness of the body is the doorway to the stillness of the interior. When the body stops its frantic movement, the mind eventually follows. We begin to encounter the quietude, that peace that's given to us for free. Free. And I don't mean free like a marketing slogan. I mean it's not something you earn, or buy, or negotiate for. It's just there. It's a gift. In a world of transactions, where everything must be earned, bought, or negotiated, the most important human right is the one we know the least, the right to contemplation. This is the right to simply exist without a purpose, without a product, and without a self to defend. You don't have to justify your existence to the universe. You are allowed to be. To enter this state, there's a specific call: flee, silence, rest. When Leloup talks about fleeing the world, he isn't telling you to go live in a cave or leave nature behind. He's talking about the noise, the constant background static of the ego that never seems to shut up, the suffocating systems of ego and consumption that drown out who we really are. Flee the sin of missing the mark, which is nothing more than forgetting the serenity of being. When we are lost in the world's ways, we lose our freedom. To renounce the world is to reclaim your own liberty. Then, realize that silence isn't something you create. It's already there. It's the white page that remains immaculate between the lines of your thoughts. It's the silence of a heart that doesn't judge or plot. Words always belong to the ego. The ego loves to talk, to define, to separate. But true silence is the vastness that contains all things. Through this silence, we purify the ego, and a vastness reveals itself within us, a space where the entire universe is welcome. And finally, you rest. You stop the struggle. You stop trying to grab the truth or pin it down with a definition. You don't have to capture the divine. You just have to stop running away from it. How do we move from the noise of the ego to the vastness of the heart? Leloup suggests a practice of radical simplicity. You sit alone. You stay quiet. You breathe more slowly. And then, the most crucial instruction: let the mind descend into the heart. In our Western education, we live in the penthouse of our heads. We're addicted to thoughts, to logic, to analyzing. But meditation requires us to abandon those thoughts and be patient. Breathing isn't just biology. When you slow it down, you aren't just moving air. You're accompanying the breath. You're softening it. You're smoothing it out until it becomes a prayer without words. When you're truly attentive to each breath, the boundary between you and the universe begins to blur. You feel yourself being inhaled and exhaled by the Absolute. You realize that the breath is the bridge between the visible and the invisible. Why search outside for what's already within? Why travel the world looking for a God who is closer to you than your own jugular vein? Usually, we think of relaxation as switching off or becoming passive. But here, to relax means to open the doors wider, the doors of your senses, your emotions, even your intellect. We aren't trying to capture the divine. You can't capture the ocean in a cup. You can only jump in. Freedom and interior peace aren't acquisitions. They're gifts received the moment you stop trying to own them. They are always there, waiting for the ego to take a holiday. The language of the world was created in time, but silence belongs to eternity. Through it, we restore our energy. We listen to the silence of the Absolute, and in doing so, we become receptive. Only a silent heart can love, because silence allows us to be present to what is, without demanding that reality matches our expectations. When we are silent, we don't need the other person to be anything other than what they are. Then, there's the mountain. Leloup tells us to meditate just like that, massive, unmoving, and simply there. A mountain doesn't have a goal. It doesn't have a to-do list. It doesn't care if it's famous or if people like its peak. It exists before your first thought and will be there after your last pain. When you sit like a mountain, the rhythm of your thoughts begins to change. You start to see without judging. Imagine you are the mountain. Do you judge the weeds growing on your slopes? Do you judge the snow that covers you or the storm that lashes against your rocks? No. You give everything the right to exist. This is the ultimate yes to reality. In non-dual philosophy, we often call this radical acceptance. It means taking whatever life throws at us, the pleasure, the pain, the light, and the dark. When we do this, we finally see things for what they are. We stop projecting our own fears and desires onto everything. That's where clarity comes from. We return to the real world, But we aren't trapped by it anymore. The drama on the surface? It's just a story, and we finally know it. But to reach this state of being still, we have to understand what blocks us. Leloup identifies 8 unhealthy thoughts, the mechanisms of the ego, attempting to maintain its separate identity and its sense of lack. First, there's gluttony. And we're not just talking about food here. It's that restless spirit of consumption, that constant nagging hunger for more. More information, more experiences, more stuff. The antidote is to start living Eucharistically. That's just a fancy way of saying we should treat life as a gift to be shared, rather than a resource we're trying to strip mine for our own satisfaction. Then there's avarice, the unhealthy attachment to goods or even ideas. We want to own the truth. The remedy is to focus on the uncreated within us, the part of you that was never born and will never die, the part that doesn't need to own anything because it is everything. Impurity, treating others as objects for our own satisfaction. The cure is chastity, which in this sense means restoring the sense of mystery in every person, acknowledging their unconsumable depth. Anger, which disfigures the soul and turns us into demons. The remedy is forgiveness and long nostrils, that ancient, beautiful metaphor for the divine patience found in a slow, deep breath. Sadness, often born from mourning what we've lost or clinging to the past. The solution is the spirit of poverty, the realization that nothing was ever ours anyway. If nothing is ours, nothing can be lost. Everything is a temporary loan from the infinite. Acedia, that spiritual weariness, the noonday demon that makes everything feel pointless. This is actually the moment of greatest freedom. It's the choice to stay present and keep breathing even when it feels boring. It's where you choose the absolute over your own fleeting moods. Vainglory, the inflation of the ego playing God, seeking applause. The antidote is self-knowledge, returning to our place as a part of the whole. And finally, pride, the total break from reality, where the ego thinks it is the center of the universe. The remedy is humility. In Leloup's view, humility is simply the truth. It's being who you are, no more, no less. It's the wonder of being a creature made of earth that's somehow capable of experiencing the infinite, the fleeing, the breathing, the mountain-like stillness. All of it points toward union. In the contemplative tradition, we were created to become one with the source, in heart, mind, soul, and body. This body-spirit is the center where all our faculties unite, where we finally transcend our small, separate selves. At first, this effort feels like pushing against a brick wall. It feels like a thick darkness. We feel hardened by sleep and disconnected. But if we persevere, something happens. A strength that words can't express begins to fill the heart. This strength transforms the way you see the world. Suddenly, the trees, the grass, the birds, the light, everything begins to proclaim the same love. You experience an ontological joy. This joy doesn't depend on your bank account, your health, or your status. It's the joy of simply being. It's the quiet I am that remains constant, even in the middle of a storm. Leloup tells us that perfection isn't up to us. We can't force ourselves into enlightenment. The only thing we control is the frequency of our practice. Perfection is a gift. Frequency is our task. Repetition is our only tool to reach that purity where the divine can reflect itself clearly. Eventually, the meditation begins to happen by itself. You don't do the meditation does you. Whether you're awake or asleep, the presence remains. You become the meditation. True meditation isn't about closing the doors of perception. It's about opening them so wide that the divine breath enters every sense. Your eyes don't just see, they witness the beauty of the source. Your ears don't just hear, they listen to the silence of the absolute. The senses aren't destroyed, they're transfigured. They become instruments of the divine. Leloup closes with the words of St. Augustine, describing that moment when the ego finally surrenders and realizes it was never alone. Late have I loved you, O beauty ever ancient, ever new. Late have I loved you. You were within me, but I was outside myself. I was looking for you out there, among the beautiful things you made. You called, you shouted, and broke through my deafness. You flashed, you shone, and you dispelled my blindness. You breathed your fragrance upon me. I tasted you, and now I hunger and thirst for you. You touched me, and now I burn for your peace. Stop scratching the surface of things. Stop looking for the source in the reflection while the source is in your own depths. Keep your spirit in that silence. Stay in the calm. Be the mountain. Be the breath. Just be. The whole path was always here. In the breath, in the silence, in the simple act of being. This is one door. There are others. Explore the channel when you feel called. And if something shifted while you were here, leave it in the comments. You never know who needs to read exactly what you felt.